As you can see by the title, anger issues. If I am looking down here, it's because I have notes everywhere, and the notes are from siteguides.com, so I will link that below if you want to check it out. Some of these anger problems I never even knew existed, so it was a learning curve for me as well. The first disorder is chronic anger, and that can be prolonged. It can actually affect the person's mental state and even the immune system. Passive anger sounds like what it is. It's when people don't show that they're angry. It can come off as sarcasm or being mean to someone, which means it can be really hard to identify. Next is overwhelmed anger, which again sounds like what it is. It's when the person is overwhelmed by certain events in their life and they take it out in an anger way. Self-inflicted anger is when the person is angry at themselves and they're usually forced to do that by feeling guilty. Judgmental anger is the opposite of that. It's feeling hatred towards other people and resenting a certain person or people. And the last one is volatile anger, which is when the person has bouts of extreme violent anger towards things or people. So all of these types of anger come under two categories, which are passive anger and aggressive anger. Passive usually means that the person doesn't realise that they're doing it. They may end up doing self-defeating things like skipping school, skipping work, performing badly in social or professional events, so they know that they're not doing it the way they should, but they don't care. People with passive anger usually repress their anger, so they don't show it in an anger way, as I said. And that can be treated with counselling, so letting the anger out, finding what they're actually angry about. Now, aggressive anger is when the person knows that they're angry, but they don't understand why. The person can redirect their anger to a scapegoat, not to the real thing that's actually making them angry, just because it's more difficult to understand what's actually making them angry. People that have aggressive anger usually need to find out what their triggers are in order to combat the feelings they get. Anger is actually misunderstood by most people. Most believe that it's down to the person themselves and that they're forcing it to happen, that they have control over it, when 90% of the time the person doesn't have any control over what they're saying or doing. Anger disorders aren't limited to teens. I know it may seem that most teenagers have them, but it's not. That's just a myth. I got this fact from the site. Harvard Medical School conducted a test on children. More than 8% of the adolescents showed anger issues that qualify for lifetime diagnoses or intermittent explosive disorder. So it isn't always in teens. It can actually be from day one. And the anger that is actually sitting in you for most of your life, that can be caused by a chemical imbalance, which is usually serotonin, which is connected to anxiety and depression. However, anger can be caused by environmental problems such as stress, even abuse. So back to the chemical side of anger, genetics can affect the way that your body deals with emotions. So it can be pushed towards anger, it can be pushed towards anxiety or depression. And anger does usually come along with depression or anxiety. It's just the way the chemicals and hormones work in your body. And people with those imbalances in their hormones and chemicals usually do go for medication over counselling. I do want to point out that just because you may have some angry days, it doesn't mean that you have an anger disorder. But if you do want to find out if you do have one, if you go to a mental health expert and ask about it, they will measure your trends in your body and the way you think. Emotional anger affects different parts of your brain. It can result in constant irritability, rage, and anxiety. People with emotional anger usually find themselves overwhelmed with situations very easily. They can have trouble organising their thoughts or things that they have to do that day. And the scariest one is they may fantasize about hurting other people. Physical anger, which is when it's obvious you're angry, you punch things, your heart's going. When you're angry, you might find that your heart's beating faster, but you might also feel like your chest is tighter, you might feel like your heart's beating irregularly. Along with that, you might have increased blood pressure, as well as headaches, fatigue, and pressure in your head. So the therapy for anger disorders are counselling and medication, just like most other disorders. If you go to your GP about counselling due to anger problems, they will probably refer you to a group counselling session. If that doesn't work, they will probably refer you to anger management. As I said, medication is usually used when people's chemicals and hormones are imbalanced and the chemical reactions aren't working very well in your head. So there are 3 different types of medication that are used for people that have anger problems. The first being antidepressants, the second being benzodiazepines, said it that time, and lithium. So antidepressants are obviously used for depression because it works in the same way, it changes the chemical imbalance in your head. Anxiety medication does the same thing, changes your thought process, and lithium is thought to stabilise the mood of the person. Lithium is known to come with loads of side effects though. First being nausea, increased thirst, changes in thought patterns, which I thought was the aim of the drug, but fatigue, dizziness, tremors, fever, and obviously addiction. Most of them side effects are found in anxiety and depression medications, so they must be quite similar. There's also a treatment that is for people that suffer from anger and depression at the same time, which is what I had a few years ago. And that's because they do tend to go hand in hand with one another, mainly because if you're repressing your anger, you do get really low moods. Okay, so I had to slip this in one video because in every other video I have planned, this has a part in it. And it is my past, so if you don't care, click off. Thank you for watching. But I think it'd be best if I slipped it in this video because it's more relevant to this than anything else. So when I was around 14, 15, I had a severe breakup. I know that might sound really stupid, but I didn't deal with it very well at all. And that caused a snap in my brain. I completely switched into an aggressive, I don't give a shit kind of person, and I was never like that before. So it was I never realised I was like it, but it was different. And I was getting all of the symptoms that I said right there. I was thinking about hurting certain people. I inflicted the anger upon myself, as well as other people. I just wasn't a nice person to be around. And when I had that switch, I forgot quite a few years before that. So now I'm 17, I can't remember year 11 or year 10. So that bleeds into most of the other videos I need to make, like depression. I won't be able to really talk about my own experience with depression because I can't remember. I mean, I remember the feeling, but I can't remember what I did or what happened when I went to therapy for it. So that video will probably be quite short compared to this one and my anxiety video, but nevertheless, I hope you enjoyed this. Leave a like if you learnt something, because I did, and subscribe if you want to hear more of my whining about my past. I'll see you later.